was the last game before Christmas. We won't get into any of that. Welcome to Terrace Talk. Norwich City getting ready to host Cardiff City at Carrow Road, their final game before Christmas. Of course, they do head to Watford on Boxing Day, so we'll probably bring you another Terrace Talk before then, although probably won't be filmed on Christmas Day. I'll hold my hands up and admit that. But we are looking ahead to Norwich City clash with Cardiff. Delighted to be joined by Ollie Stockdale, who is an audio description commentator. Ollie, we're having a bit of chat about this. Tell us about the difference between perhaps being what you class as like a radio commentator or a television commentator, and maybe the sort of commentary you do, because it was really interesting to hear you sort of describe that off air.
Yeah, so my form of commentary, audio description, is a very descriptive form of commentary. It's very different to your standard commentary, and even very different from a radio commentary. It's all about following the ball and painting a picture in the listener's head, because obviously they can't see what's going on. So you've got to make sure that you're up to date with the action, following the ball across the pitch, being as descriptive as possible. And as I was mentioning to Connor, it is quite a demanding on your voice and on you as a commentator. So it's great to have co-commentators come in and provide some information in the breaks when the ball does go off the pitch or whatever. But it's really interesting, and it's as I said as well to Connor, it's a really rewarding pastime, providing commentary for people who really need this service. And I actually spoke to Lord Blunkett, who's a well-known MP. He was State of Education, I believe, and he was also backbencher, and he uses the service, the Alan March Sports service, and he was saying about how essential it is to people who use it. He's used it around the ground, so it's a really important service, and it's great to provide it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's great work that you do, Ollie. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll talk a little bit about Cardiff City and their season at the moment. I'm also delighted to be joined by David Lamb. Some of you might know him as Huckabee's Barber on Twitter. So I guess really, David, the first question I've got to ask you. And maybe not. Maybe the having a few technical issues with David, but we'll bring him back in a moment. Ollie, let's kickstart things by talking about Cardiff City. Then Neil Harris in charge, currently sitting 10th in the table, 3 points off the playoffs. I think from the outside, you could maybe say that things are looking they're in a fairly decent position, maybe. How do you feel as a fan, and how are other fans feeling about Cardiff City's progress at the moment?
Well, although it may look on the outside, as you said, it might look great. At times it feels like you don't know what to expect as a Cardiff fan. You don't know whether you'll turn up to a game and we'll play brilliantly and get the 3 points. You don't know whether we'll turn up and we'll be dreadful. And like we saw midweek, it wasn't a brilliant performance from Cardiff, yet we ended up getting 3 points. It's a really strange time as a Cardiff fan, because we're looking now again for this game against Norwich for our 6th win in 7 games, which all looks brilliant. But if you actually watch the games, Cardiff haven't been playing, at least I'd say, anywhere near their best ability with the players they have and the quality they have, with the likes of Wilson and Moore. And some other players we brought in the transfer window. Cardiff really have some great quality within their team to play top quality football, but it just doesn't seem to happen a lot of the time for Cardiff. And although we've pulled out some really important results recently, I'm not filled with confidence still, despite, as I said, looking for the 6th win in 7. It's still not filling me with confidence, this Cardiff team. And I think Cardiff fans are still worried about what's going on at the club. So a couple of changes within the team that you've seen throughout the season. Players coming in, obviously more injured now. That was a huge blow for Cardiff fans. But Glatzel stepped up and in the last game, obviously scoring. So he's a really influential player for Cardiff at the moment, and it'd be interesting to see how he does in the weekend against Norwich.
Absolutely. Hopefully we've got David Lamb with us now, Norwich City fan. Some of you may know him as Huckabee's Barber on Twitter, which David prompts me to ask the first question. Hopefully, if we've got a solid enough connection. Are you a hairdresser? Have you cut Darren Huckabee's hair?
I have not. No. This was just something that was funny in about 2004, and just it didn't seem that there was any point in getting rid of it. Really, it's one of those kind of Grant Holt's boots, that type of thing, and it just went from there. And then it became easier for that, and so I've stuck with it. It's actually quite funny, because if ever I tweet him, like there's only once he's responded, and it's not like I'm stalking Darren Huckabee or anything, but it's just that it's quite funny. I think he's kind of there's almost some sort of nerves that, you know, it's like he's like, I know, should I be worried about this? Like I'm taking his image right stuff because I've got his photograph on my Twitter feed as well. So it's so yeah, I don't know quite how he responds to that, but anyway, there we go. I have not cut his hair.
Well, that maybe is a better story than if you'd have just said, yeah, I've cut Darren Huckabee's hair. So I like it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
David, how are you feeling about Norwich City at the moment? It was a really good win, I thought, against Reading in midweek. They currently sit top of the table. Everything seems to be looking fairly rosy for Norwich City at the moment. Even the injury crisis seems to be easing.
Well, it really is, isn't it? I mean, the funny thing about this is, I mean, people are always kind of looking for similarities between now and 2018-19, and there's some similarity in that. In 18-19, we didn't have such a chronic injury crisis, but we had a number of people out, and it seemed that whoever came in was able to do the job and was able to do the job as well or better than the player coming in the back. So when you saw the injury list, and there was that famous tweet trope that someone put out where you had the entire first team squad and like every single name was crossed out, bar about, you know, a bare 11 or 12, something like that. And you thought, oh, this is going to be awful. Well, look at the record we've had since then. I mean, I think we've lost against Luton, and that's it. So it's been amazing. And I mean, the funny thing is, like, I was texting my brother the other night and was saying, I don't know how we're getting this done. But then actually, when you looked at the game last night, we kind of, for all that it was 2-1, we kind of outclassed them in terms of playing. So, yeah, that was going to be, you know, overconfident and marching into a game against a team like Cardiff, who, you know, obviously a formidable opponent at the times. You got to say we fancy our chances because for some reason we're being able to get it done. We're being able to get it done with class. And then when you look at the players we do have, you know, a series of players who I think would probably grace a number of championship sides, right? When you think about, you know, Buendia and Cantwell, Pookie, Krul, you know, we've got some players that I think, you know, most people would be pretty jealous of. So I think that's got to factor into some of it. But yeah, it's still unbelievable to be sitting here with 40 points off 17 games. That's 90 games. That's amazing.
Yeah, it certainly is. Ollie, that seems quite an apt opportunity to bring you in to speak about Cardiff. And it was interesting there. We've had David, and I'd certainly echo his sentiments about performances, and you've referenced performances sort of from Cardiff's perspective as well, maybe not being up to the standard that the people expect. Is that just a byproduct of the current schedule, do you think? It's more about kind of grinding out results, and if so, does that favour the style of football that Cardiff try and play, which maybe I know certain people would be very vocal against, but very sort of physical, very direct football, maybe that could work a little bit better in the current situation?
Yeah, definitely. I think grinding out results is something which a championship team looking to get promoted definitely needs to do, and I think although we have the quality to play fantastic football, at least I feel that to a certain extent, it just doesn't seem to be happening. And grinding out results at the moment is how Cardiff are picking up their impressive form. I think we've taken 15 points from the last possible 18. So as a Norwich, two of the most informed sides in the Championship. I think Norwich taken 12 points from 12. But I mean, when Neil Warnock left, it looked like this style of football at Cardiff, of the hit and hope almost style, it had gone. But we've actually seen more of that, and we played a 4-4-2 in a couple of games with more when we played more and Glatzel up front, and just trying to grind out those results and the last minute headers from Morrison, etc. And really, well, we've got the points is the main objective, of course. But the style of football still isn't really what we're looking for, I think, at the club, and especially Neil Harris. I'm not sure if that's what he's looking for, but you know, he's brought in some really good players with Wilson and also Ojo bringing some good performances. And obviously, we're very dangerous from set pieces. That's somewhere where we've excelled throughout the years, to be honest, even when we were in the Premier League. And obviously, lots of the goals again this season coming from set pieces. And I think that's something which hopefully on Saturday we'll look to maybe exploit against Norwich.
You reference style of play. He obviously inherited the Neil Warnock side as well, but he was sort of known for that at Millwall, wasn't he, in terms of the style of play? So in terms of sort of decisions over who to replace Neil Warnock, I think it probably was a fairly smart choice. But how much, I mean, you kind of touched upon it there in terms of style. How much does that matter to Cardiff fans? Because we kind of see it, and even we've seen it this week with Sam Allardyce going to West Brom, I think, to an extent, where a couple of years ago they were maybe getting a bit fed up with Tony Pulis and his style of play, and then they seem to have almost gone a bit more in that direction. Is it such a big issue for you if teams are getting results, or do Cardiff fans want to see a different style of football, do you think?
I think obviously we want to see that attractive style of football, but as long as we're getting the results, I'm not Cardiff fans, at least most of them, I don't think are particularly bothered. However, as soon as the results turn, then all the backlash is down on the team for this awful style of football, the hit and hope, there's no direction, and all this kind of stuff. So it really depends on the results for how Cardiff fans almost look upon this style of football, if I'm being completely honest with you, Con. At least that's how I look at it. Because, if we get the 3 points, if it hasn't been pretty, obviously we don't tend to complain about it. But as soon as those results start going against us, all the criticism comes down on Neil Harris and the players. So I think to a certain extent, the style of football is important. And also I think it's really important if we're looking to get promoted and go to the Premier League. I don't think we can stay up with the style of football that we have been playing for years now. I don't think it's attainable to stay in the Premier League if we somehow manage to end up getting promoted. So I think changing that style is really important. But at the moment, as I said, we're finding ways to get 3 points, not playing pretty football, which Cardiff fans aren't really complaining about at the moment.
No, absolutely, especially with the form that you sort of listed there. What, 5 wins in 6? I think that would make it, which is fairly impressive stuff. David, are we expecting a clash of styles at Carrow tomorrow? We've seen how Ollie listened to how Ollie has spoken about Cardiff and their style of play, and Norwich obviously try and do things a little bit differently. They like to have possession of the ball. They like to move it around and try and play through sides rather than maybe over them. Are you expecting a clash of styles tomorrow?
I think, I think you're probably going to get that. I think the question is going to be how we react to it, though. I mean, it was interesting in the Blackburn game was probably the team that gave us a bigger run, albeit they were at home. And they actually tried to do a little bit the same that we do. They tried to kind of play through us a bit. They tried to play the ball and didn't sit back on us, pressed us, didn't necessarily let us enjoy the possession that we normally come to try and get. Tried to play the possession game a bit themselves and actually had a fair bit of joy doing that, if we're being truthful. So it's really about, I think we will see the clash. It's just a question of how that goes. I think we're going to see, I think it will probably be a more physical game than the last couple. And again, given where we are, given, some vulnerability, I guess, from a point of view of injuries and so on, see how that goes. But it's really going to be, so I think clash for sure. It's just going to be a question of how we react to it. And I think we'll see goals tomorrow. I think that it's going to be one of those types of games that I've got a funny feeling it won't be 2-1. I've a funny feeling it will be, it could be kind of 2-3, 3-2, that type of thing. I'm not going to say 2-3, 3-2, that type of thing. But you never know, could be wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting. Just on that point about physicality, again, I've just come out of Daniel Farke's pre-match press conference about half an hour or so ago, and he spoke about obviously Tim Krul, a little bit of a setback in terms of his injury, which means Michael McGovern is going to be in goal for Norwich again tomorrow. Would you have any concerns about his physicality in this game, particularly given how strong Cardiff are from set pieces?
I think that we have been aware. I mean, we're certainly spoiled by having Tim Krul, and I think his size has meant that some of the frailties that we obviously have from set pieces have been in some way compensated for by this. And it's clear that in the last few games that even though I think Michael McGovern has grown in confidence just with match practice, certainly his position seems to be better with every single game. Certainly more confident shot stopping now than he was at the beginning. And we saw a great example of that. With that fantastic save, against Blackburn the other day too. But yeah, his size definitely is a consideration. He's not 6'4", right? And so I think that might be something that I think you could see Cardiff looking, and I'm quite sure they didn't. Ollie will probably tell us that, but I think you're going to see a side that probably would have been doing a lot of work on set pieces this weekend because over the course of this last week, because I think that they will see that as being a potential opportunity to to exploit from our point of view. And McGovern's a part of it, but he's only a part of it, right? I mean, again, there has been this leitmotif through all of our sides and all of our sides from the very beginning that, there's definitely persistence around zonal defence, and there are defensive frailties. For all the fact that we defended better this season, or rather we've had more clean sheets this season by this point than we have in any other, that's still there. So yes, there's definitely a point around McGovern. You have to say it's not just about McGovern, it's about the defence as a whole. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I'm reckoning, Cardiff are going to be looking at set pieces big time over the course of tomorrow's game.
Yeah, I think you're right, and you're absolutely spot on as well. It's not just about Michael McGovern, and of course there is a structure over that. But I thought McGovern did very. I mean, it was a brilliant save, wasn't it? You referenced the Blackburn one, but also the Reading one in stoppage time from the free kick was excellent as well. Ollie, let's ask you about those aerial statistics and the set pieces then, because I had a look, I think earlier this week, at some of Cardiff's aerial statistics, and they are insane. They are quite a way ahead of anyone else in the division. Norwich, as David has said, clearly set pieces or defending them is a bit of an Achilles heel for them. Certainly was last season, maybe to a lesser extent this season. But Stoke had a lot of joy in the game at the Bet365 Stadium a few weeks back with set pieces. Is that really the strength of this Neil Harris side? Is that where maybe you'd expect the goals to come from?
Yeah, I think some people some Cardiff fans would like to stay away from that and say, oh, well, we've got the quality of, Wilson, who can hit fantastic goals, and we've got pace down the wings to put balls across the box. But I think ultimately that's where we've been causing teams the most problems. Morrison and Moore and Glass all causing absolute chaos in the box throughout the season. And I expect Norwich to have most of the possession in the game, so I can't see Cardiff. I think if Cardiff are going to score goals, I think they'll be mostly from the dead ball situations and from set pieces, unless we have players going down the box or unless something crazy happens. But I think definitely that's going to be where Neil Harris is going to be looking to exploit Norwich on Saturday. And I think Norwich fans probably that's what they're would be most concerned about. At least that's what I'd be most concerned about, is the danger that Cardiff have from set pieces. I mean, even this season under Neil Harris, it's been such a threat, and even in previous seasons when we had Neil Warnock as a manager, it was always something that Cardiff thrived at with set pieces, and it's just continued this season. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think you've probably sent some shudders down Norwich City fans' spine with what you've just said there in terms of set pieces. But you mentioned the pace out wide. I want to speak about one of those options, which obviously is someone Norwich fans know well in Josh Murphy. It kind of feels like maybe, and I know he got booed off, didn't he? What was it, last season against Preston or the year before? But doesn't quite feel like it's maybe worked out for him in the way he would have hoped when he arrived at Cardiff.
Yeah, it's a really weird situation because we all know, well, at least most of us know the ability Josh Murphy has and the potential that he has, but he just seems to struggle to find his feet, and he'll find an odd goal here and there, and you're thinking, oh, well, there's the potential. But it's clear, really, that he just hasn't fitted really into this Cardiff City side. I'm not sure whether it's his form affecting him, whether it's confidence. I'm really not sure, to be honest, and it's clear that Harris prefers maybe Ojo over him, or even Hoyler at that. And I almost feel for Josh Murphy at times. I think he gets a bit of stick, to be honest, when he's not performing. Yeah, he's just really struggled, and I don't think he'll be in the starting. Well, I'd be surprised if he's in the starting 11 against Norwich on Saturday. But I think I know, and I've seen sparks from Josh Murphy to suggest that he has talent and that he could be a major player within this Cardiff City side. But it's not looking like that he's in Neil Harris's plans for the starting 11 throughout this season anyway.
Which is very interesting. I remember when Josh and Jacob left Carrow Road, and they were very highly thought of by supporters, albeit they did have to deal with a little bit of criticism as well. Yeah. David, let's we're on the topic of attacking players. Let's speak about Todd Cantwell and Kieran Dow, both of whom came on against Reading, and I felt kind of impacted and changed the game slightly. Obviously, Kieran Dow, we have to take into consideration that he's had a fairly major injury and been out for a few months. But would you like to see either of those start against Cardiff tomorrow?
I think we're still looking at them as impact. I think that, to Dal, he's definitely on his way back, and you could see that in the game. There's definitely a bit of rust there. Although what I thought was good about him was that he's got a certain amount of courage in there. He wants to get in, he wants to get forward, and he wants to try and influence the game. I would rather try and exploit that, I think, than have him start. I would say the same thing with Cantwell as well. You're still seeing that he's still. I think there were signs that he's still sort of on the way back. His injury wasn't as severe, but I think you're probably more likely to see them start on the bench just because of that. And again, back to the point around physicality, right? We're looking, I think, for a bit more steel in those positions, at least I would say for the first 50, 60 minutes of the game tomorrow. So let's see, but I think it's bench for both of those for right now. I think there are going to be lots of games that we're going to be looking for them to influence over the early part of the new year, and I'd rather have those guys fresh for that.
Interesting. And I'll just ask you as well about the number 10 position, that attacking midfield position. It kind of feels, again, it was an issue last season. It kind of feels like it's beginning to crop up a little bit, but maybe being sort of disguised a little bit by the fact Norwich are winning games. But Marco Stiepermann hasn't really hit the heights he did 2 years ago. Seen Mario Vrancic play there and maybe not necessarily put in the performances that he has as a deeper lying midfielder in those games where Norwich have had a lot of possession at home. In your view, what's the solution to that position? Because it does feel a little bit like, although Norwich have got Buendia and Josh Martin, who's done well, but maybe didn't necessarily have the best game at Reading. Cantwell as well, we could throw into that. Kieran Down maybe as someone to come into that position. But it kind of feels like a position maybe that's still a little bit up for grabs in this Norwich side.
I think it is. And I think there's kind of two ways of looking at it. On the one side, you could say no one shined necessarily in it. But by the other by exactly the same token, you could say glass half full, anyone who's sat in that position has done the job. The other thing I'd say is that if you look at where we were again, 2018-19, we got an awful lot of joy from the flanks, and clearly we had strength in abundance, both in the forward positions and obviously the wing backs. That continues to a degree, obviously with Max, who looked great. Max Harrens looked great again on Tuesday night. So that was great. I think in the number 10 position, I think because of the influence of players just kind of running and kind of working either side of Pookie, I don't know that the number 10 is as critical to us in this season with this campaign as it was in 18-19. That's, again, I think been masked by the fact that Pookie knows where the goal is. We're scoring goals, so it's perhaps not feeling that way. I'm actually not as down on Stiepermann as a lot of people are. I think he's, he had a really rough season last season. There's no doubt about it that he's not cut out for the Premier League, in my view. I think he is. This kind of is a bit more his version. I think he's been a little more influential. Hasn't hit the heights you say, but I think he's doing the job. I think let's see what the rest of the formation actually looks like. But I think our influence is kind of coming a little bit more from the flanks than it is the number 10. I think we'll see. I think if he starts, I wouldn't be that bothered. But I am very keen on seeing Vrancic play more of a role, particularly in the games. Again, whether tomorrow's again, because of physicality is another matter. But I think seeing him play the creative role in the middle there is I'd like to see more of. I think this whole piece, this trope around him, he's not able to run as much. He's not able to put the strength in. He's put a lot of minutes in this season already. He looks okay to me. Yeah, he's a little older, but I think he needs to be given a bit more credit for that. So Vrancic, Stiepermann, I'm really not too fast either way. I think tomorrow, though, it's going to be interesting to see how we set up in the middle. Where's Steele going to come from? That's going to allow the creativity in the middle, and that's going to be an interesting call tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely, and he has to get that balance absolutely spot on, doesn't he? I think we saw maybe at Blackburn the best example of that with Tetty and Skip. I just wonder whether he'll be tempted into that partnership again tomorrow. Ollie, let's kind of talk from your perspective. I ask you a question that I ask all of our opposition fans when they come on. I ask you to imagine that you're Daniel Farke stood on the touchline in your choose your colour, black, green. He's worn as well in his time. Parker with the flowing hair. How do you approach this game? What particular areas do you look to exploit? Where are Cardiff's frailties?
I still think, to be honest with you, the midfield of Cardiff when packed in there, I'm not ever confident about it. I think, and we really miss when Rolls and Volks are playing together, I think Norwich can dominate the midfield if they choose to, and dominate possession. And it's just, and obviously we've had problems in defence this season and throughout the season. I mean, we scored, Swansea scored some really, really scrappy goals against us in that game, and we conceded some really scrappy goals in midweek. So it's clear that there's some holes to pick apart within this Cardiff team, within the midfield, within the defence. And I just think with Norwich, as long as they can successfully defend the set pieces, as long as they can make sure that Cardiff don't start to put pressure on them. I think a lot of it is down, to be honest with you, how Cardiff approach this game, how they're looking to play. I don't think they're going to try and keep possession in the game. I'm not sure if they're going to try and outplay Norwich. I don't think that'd be a good idea. So, in terms of if I was a Norwich manager or player, I'd be looking to exploit that defence and dominate that midfield, to be honest with you.
Interesting stuff. In terms of what you just said there, has there been evidence from your perspective that Cardiff have struggled against sides that have kept the ball? Have you not really seen that this season?
Yeah, I mean, well, with sometimes when Cardiff, sometimes Cardiff actually prefer it when teams keep the ball, because they almost don't know what to do with it sometimes when they've got the ball. I think in certain games you can tell that they're confident, they're just sitting back. And waiting for the right moment to maybe break us. We had a couple of nice counter-attacking goals with Wilson scoring one of them and Ojo scoring one of them early on in the season. So I think sometimes Cardiff are more comfortable when teams have the ball, and I suspect that Norwich will probably have most of the possession. At least that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. So it might be a slightly more comfortable position for Cardiff than some people might expect. So I don't think Cardiff be too worried about Norwich having all of the ball, because that's not really the game that Cardiff have been playing when they've been getting these results. I think they need to be careful that they don't start too slow, because in certain games, we've gone a goal down and we've made it really difficult for ourselves to come back. I think if Cardiff start quickly and can start putting some pressure on that Norwich defence and the goalkeeper as well, I think then we've got a good chance in this game to get some points and maybe even get the 3 points. We'll see, though. It's going to be a tough game for Cardiff.
Interesting. I noticed that you brought up the Swansea defeat. I thought I wouldn't press you any further. So that's we'll leave it there in terms of that. David, in terms of how you view this game going tomorrow, are you kind of expecting it to be much of the same really to the games that Norwich have had at Carrow Road this season, in terms of teams maybe allowing them the ball and asking questions of them in terms of, okay, then can you break us down with it?
I think if they're going to do the whole, we'll let you have the possession and we'll kind of let you come on to us. I think ultimately, again, because the fitness thing, I think also tells in the long run, I think we will probably just about win out. But you never know quite how it's going to go with this. I mean, I don't think we're certainly not going to do anything any differently. We have had a great deal of success with that, with a number of different sorts of opponent, and I think we'll see Cardiff as being very similar. Yeah, there's as I said, we talked about the physicality. I think that will definitely tell. I think if we carry on doing what we're doing in terms of enjoying the possession, looking for the openings, trying to use the flanks, but you're looking for some of those through balls, I think we will probably win out. And I think in certain circles, look at the number of penalties we've had as well. So we certainly had over the course of the season for a number of different opponents. So I think that shows some of the attacking intent that we have. I think that I can certainly see us winning the game. I think the danger will be if we concede, as we have done, some daft free kicks in some daft areas, and we go behind to one or two set pieces. It's a completely different game, without wishing to state the obvious, and it will. I think then an opponent like Cardiff will be extremely difficult to break down. So I think that's kind of what we have to ward against, and where we're vulnerable, the times of the game that we're vulnerable, just before half time. Kind of, it seems to be around 15 minutes. Then there's kind of that 10-minute period, the other side of half time. These are the times where, for some reason, we have a bit of an issue concentration-wise. So that, I think, are going to be the danger spots. But I mean, and this is in any way meant to sound arrogant, but I would say that, yeah, looking forward to us potentially, us winning the game tomorrow for sure. But I would say that, wouldn't I?
Well, absolutely. Well, you've teed it up nicely there. Then, David, I'll ask you in terms of a score prediction, which is always dangerous for people to make. You kind of sounded like a man who's very positive. Let's see if that's reflected in a score prediction. How do you see it going in terms of scoreline?
I'm gonna really regret this. I'm gonna say 3-1 to us.
Oh, happy days. Well, that would be a nice escape away from the 2-1 victories, which are very nice.
You can't be 1-0 or 2-1 anymore. Like, there was a time I was going to nickname, we were going to have hashtag United. I was going to call us Binary FC because it was 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. Now that's become 2-1, 2-1, 2-1. So who knows? But yeah, that's what we're going to buck the trend and say 3-1.
Interesting, brave. Ollie, how do you see it going from Cardiff's perspective? Are you with David? How do you see this game panning out? And then, of course, I'll ask you for your score prediction as well.
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult score prediction to make. To be honest, I'm not sure when there's going to be a lot of evidence back in my prediction up. To be honest, but I mean, I think I got to try and go with Cardiff. It's going to be difficult, really tough game for them. But obviously, both us and Norwich are in really good form, so it's going to be a tough game for both sides. I think if Cardiff can get that first goal, start making the Norwich defence question themselves, maybe question the goalkeeper, I think maybe Cardiff might pull out a result here, but not sure where from. But but I think I'll go with 2-1. But as I said, Connor, there's not a lot going behind that. But it's a really important game for both sides, and hopefully for me as a Cardiff fan, we can get a result here. If not the 3 points, then a draw would be a kind result for us. I think we take that, to be honest. But yeah, just make sure that we can make some. Just make sure we can try and make sure that this Norwich team question themselves and question, are they okay in defence? Is there problems at the back? And if we can start to make them question themselves, then this Norwich team could struggle possibly. But if we go a goal down, early in the game, then it could all go very wrong for Cardiff quite quickly, I think.
Interesting. Right, gents, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for watching as well. Of course, Blinken.com, the place to go for all the latest Norwich City news and views. We'll be at Carrow Road tomorrow. Certainly going to be an interesting one. You can join us on our various social media pages as we look ahead to the team news about, I think, 12 kickoff tomorrow. So we'll be about 11:30. So it's a nice early start for us at Carrow Road, but it means we get a little bit of our Saturday to enjoy. Gents, thank you very much. Stay safe, and we'll see you again very, very soon.
Cheers, Connor. Cheers, Ollie. Talk to you later. Bye.